welcome back to my kitchen. It's quite early this morning. I've got working a little bit and I've got a cake to take in with me for a raffle prize. I'm doing a simpler version of the allotment cake I made a couple of months ago for my mother-in-law. I'll show you how to make all the vegetables and how I actually decorate the cake. So I've got to start with 2 sheet cakes here that I've cut down to 11 inches by 8.5 inches. I've got my cake board, which is a 16-inch by 12-inch. I got some buttercream, I've got some nice raspberry jam, I've got a piping bag fitted with this really huge nozzle here, I don't know if you can see that, which I'll use to decorate the cake after. And then I've got another piping bag with no nozzle. So I'm going to start by filling my piping bag. I'll start by just piping a blob of smear that out. That's what's going to adhere our cake to the board. So I'm going to put it in the middle today. If I was going to put some sort of writing or anything like that, I might move it back, but we're not doing that today, so that's fine. So I'm going to create a sort of well for my my jam now. It's out slightly. It's my little sort of wall of buttercream. Some normal raspberry jam in the centre there. And then I'm going to take my other cake, and this time I'm going to flip it over. Line that up. Put my other cake, and that should line up pretty well. This nozzle has got a sort of serrated side and a smooth side. So you want to put the serrated side down on the cake, and then a pipe like that. I've done it the wrong way up. This piping doesn't have to be perfect, so we're going to go over it with a spatula. And the same around the sides. I just find you can just spatula the buttercream on. I just find that this helps it give you a more even sort of distribution to start with. We can start smoothing this now. This is basically going to be a crumb coat and a base for our fondant. I'm just going to swap out my big spatula for my little teeny tiny one. So I've got a scraping tool here, so I'm just going to take that round. I'm not really scraping off, we're more just making it all smooth, which is much easier with this long sort of straight edge. So I've just laid out one of my rolling mats, and I've got a big blob of green fondant that I've coloured. It's the first time using these mats. I think they're from Iced Gems, so I'm looking forward, they look really good. And I've coloured my green with mint green and Christmas green. I'm just going to start, I've got a new rolling pin as well. I'm going to start just by rolling this out a little bit. So it looks like I had my sheet upside down, so I've popped it over the other way now, and then I'm going to pop this sheet on top. So let's give this a go. So I'm just going to rub this now with my smoothers while it's on the board. Okay, so I've got my chilled crumb coated cake. Just fold that over. Flop that over. Take my smoothing tools now, give it a quick smooth on the top, and then I want to pull that in so it doesn't start tearing. I'm just taking off the excess, I'm not making it neat at this stage, literally just taking off the excess weight so it doesn't keep dragging on the cake. And this fondant hasn't touched the buttercream, so you could use that again. Now I'm going to start taking this fondant quite close to the cake. So on the corners especially, you want to sort of give it pressure from both sides. pointing right up against the cake this time. This is the cake covered with fondant. So this creates sort of like a hair or a grass sort of border, and that's what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to fill it with edible soil, which in my case is bourbon biscuits. But you could use, if you're not in the UK, you could use any sort of chocolate Oreos. I think a lot of people use. So I coloured the fondant for my potatoes with a little bit of ivory and caramel sugar flare colouring, and then I just basically rolled them into potato shapes, and I'll show you a little bit later on how I decorate them with the bourbon biscuit so it looks like they've been dug up from the soil. With the tomatoes, they're really simple as well. They're just basically red fondant rolled up into a ball. They don't traditionally grow on the ground, but that's what I've done for this cake, so a little bit of make-believe there. I've just rolled out some fondant in green and used a teeny tiny star cutter to make the little green top of the tomato, and I've got a tool there, just push that in to give it an indent, and that's pretty much all it is with the tomatoes. And this little star cutter, you'll see I use quite a few times for the vegetables, it's quite handy. The pumpkins are actually my favourite vegetable. I really enjoy making these. You basically take orange fondant, roll it up into a ball, give it a good squish down using that same tool there to stop it being completely round. Then I make indents, 2 halfway and then 2 in between that to make 6 in total. Then I make those indentations a little bit deeper with this scraping tool here. And go down each groove, gives it that really pumpkiny shape, before adding a stalk with the same green that we've been using for everything else. And this is just plain fondant, I haven't added anything to it, so they don't dry completely hard. Here I'm just rolling sort of a thin sausage shape and then using a cocktail stick to twirl it into the vine that pumpkins have. And that's then pretty much done. Really simple but really effective. The carrots I made for this cake look as though they're sticking out of the ground slightly, so they haven't got that pointy end that a carrot would have. I've got some 24 gauge wire there that you can buy from cake decorating or florist supply stores, and I'm taking a blob of the orange fondant and rolling it around that wire to give it the carrot shape. Then I'm using the same star cutter to put the green top on the carrot. This can alter the shape of the carrot slightly when you indentate it because it can squash it. And you can see I'm just sort of rolling my fingers to make sure it's the shape that I want. And then I've just got a sharp knife there and I'm just making some little indentations the carrots tend to have. And I'm just doing a second one here to show you again. Put into the wire. It's really quite simple to get that shape, and then just flatten down the top so we can put the green star. This one obviously was a little bit long, so I've just trimmed off that edge, and they look really nice sort of sticking out of the ground, or out of the blitzed up bourbon biscuits anyway. The last time I made vegetables out of fondant, I came up with these turnips, and I think they've actually become one of my favourite vegetables now. I think they're really effective. So I've just coloured some white fondant with that sugar flare ivory, and then I'm just dividing what I've got into 8 sort of equal sized balls. They don't have to be exactly the same, veg never is. I'm rolling them then so they're nice and smooth and round in the palm of my hand. Then I'm just cutting out 8 of those teeny tiny stars to top the turnips with. Here I've got a dry paintbrush and some fuchsia sugar flare colour, and I've just popped that into a bowl so I can control the amount on the end of my paintbrush. You don't need very much. And then I'm just sort of dry brushing that onto the fondant, and I just think it gives a really nice effect, and they really look like turnips. And then I'm just popping that star on top and just indenting it in. Being Welsh, obviously couldn't leave leeks off this cake. So I've got my 24 gauge wire again. I've got some more of that ivory fondant, but it's less coloured than with the turnips. And then I've got some more of my green. So you'll see throughout the vegetables that they're all sort of similar colours, so we're not using too much equipment. So I'm just taking the two blobs, put them together, and then rolling them out to look like a sort of leek. Then popping in my wire. This one I can see is a little bit long, so I'm going to take some of that green off. And then what I like to do is actually use the scissors to snip the end so it looks like a leek. It's the best way of cutting fondant without it tearing. So I cut it in half, then quarters, and then I cut each of those quarters in half again. And that gives you that sort of look of a leek. But what you find, it does fray out at the top. So what I tend to do is give it another roll, and then you get that lovely shape. So you'll see with this one now. These little strawberries are teeny tiny but super cute. So I'm rolling the green again for those little stars. Surprisingly, they fit on these little strawberries quite nicely because they do have a lot of green strawberries. I'm just taking a tiny bit of red fondant and rolling it nice and smooth, and then making that sort of rounded triangle shape for a strawberry. Then just popping on that green star. And then what I've got here is just some white food colouring, and I'm just making those little sort of seeds that you'd expect to see on strawberries. The last vegetable I've got here now is my cauliflowers. I'm rolling out that same green again, and we're going to cut out some ovals. I've got 4 ovals for each cauliflower, and we're only making 4 because they're quite a large vegetable. Got some more of that fondant that we used for the turnips, rolling those into nice sort of round balls. But cauliflowers are obviously not smooth, so I needed to texture them. And what I found was a really nice way of texturing them was my wire that I've been using to wire everything into the cake as a bunch, and just stabbing them worked really well. I've just got a ball tool here now, and I'm just rolling around the edge of my ovals to make them look more like leaves. And then I'm using edible glue to attach the middle of the cauliflower then and to the edge of one of the ovals. I'm really pleased with how the cauliflowers came out. I think they're really effective, and they're quite simple to make. You can also make cabbages in the same way by creating a sort of cabbage heart with the green fondant, and then creating the leaves like this and wrapping them around, and those come out really nice as well for cakes. Roll my potatoes in the biscuit. They come out looking like they've just been dug up, which I think is really effective. So that's those done. I've actually wired them in as well. So I'm going to do sort of little rows of these. There we are. So that's all the vegetables done. There's the cake all finished.